Hello, welcome to episode 18 of Dare to Speak, Difficult Conversations That Can Change Everything. Today, I want to talk a little bit more about male mental health. There was a Danish study that said men going through separation and divorce are functioning at 77% of their capability during separation and divorce. The use of alcohol goes up significantly around separation and divorce for men, rising to about 44% increase. And the suicide rates for men going through divorce, according to a recent survey by the Office for National Statistics, shows that there is a much higher rate. So what we're seeing is an epidemic in men of loneliness and difficulty and depression during separation and divorce. So in this episode, I'm going to be asking, how do men respond when we ask them how they are? If you are a man listening to this, you'll know how you respond. It may well be with a shutdown. Yeah, everything's fine. Yeah, it's all fine. Or perhaps you'll vent off some steam, being angry, being upset. Perhaps you know your habits are getting out of control. Maybe you're procrastinating. Maybe you're not focusing at work. Maybe you're gaming more. Maybe you're scrolling endlessly through social media. But whatever you're doing, you know that your performance, your ability to concentrate is being affected. And that's what I want to talk about today, because I think it's not considered enough, the impact around separation and divorce for men. So here's how it goes. We all know that if we're distracted, we're more likely to be irritable. If somebody asks us to do something and we've got overwhelmed because we've got lots and lots on our mind, then there's going to be a danger that we're going to be snappy, we're going to be irritable. We're going to find it harder to negotiate, harder to compromise, harder to have discussions. It may be that if we have a tendency to get loud, get angry, to shut people down, or to be domineering, that's going to come out more when we're under pressure. And this is what I see happening a lot with men. So when I'm speaking to men in my practice, they will often say to me, I'm not acting like I want to act. It's almost as if it's a mystery to them. And that's because learning how to regulate yourself in this type of situation is really, really difficult. When I'm working with men, usually I can point to other areas of their life where they're really regulated. It may be in their work. That's what I see very commonly. Men who are doing really well at work, they know how to regulate, they know how to lead teams, they know how to problem solve, they know how to get things done. But in their home life, it's much harder. And why is it harder? Well, it's harder because this is to do with the future. This is to do with your home life. This is to do with what's happening in the day to day, your children, the future that you've been working for. And I don't really think enough is said about this. I watch the internet, I see, the algorithm throws up stuff about the manosphere and throws up about men being difficult and men being controlling and men being toxic. But the reality is, what I can see underneath that all with my psychologist eyes is human beings who are actually really struggling because things are very tense. Divorce and separation is up there with bereavement and moving house as being one of the most stressful experiences. But here's the thing, with bereavement, it is heartbreaking. Somebody that you care about, somebody that you love, maybe somebody that you had a difficult relationship with is passing. And there's going to be a lot to do. There's going to be a lot of admin, but there's going to be a lot of emotional upheaval, and it will affect your family and your children. But that's something that we understand in society. It's something that we talk about, maybe not enough, actually. And I would definitely say that we should talk much more about when people pass. We should definitely talk more about estate planning and wills and last wishes, because that is an area where families become full of conflict. Moving house, super stressful if you've had to do it. Will it fall through? Will you be in a chain? How are people going to behave? What if there's last minute upsets? What if the house that you want gets gazumped? What if you can't find somewhere to live? How are you going to work out the new schools and forwarding post and changing all your details? Loads and loads of admin, loads and loads of emotional upheaval, but you know where you're going. And even though it might get delayed, even though you might not get a house that you want, you'll know you'll get something, or you can just stay where you were. Separation and divorce is really, really different from that. I am talking to too many people who have got no idea about the process, don't know. They've never considered it, they've never discussed it, and it comes as a massive, massive shock when they discover that the process of divorce, you have to apply for a divorce, you do it yourself, or you can get a solicitor to do it, although you'll pay more. And I recommend it's a very simple form, so do it yourselves. Then you have to work out the finances. Now, you'll know yourself if you're listening to this. How well do you know your finances? When was the last time that you wrote down everything that you owed and everything that you had, all your savings and investments? You went through your pensions, you went through any trust funds, you went through your property details, you had a look at your stuff to work out whether you had expensive jewelry or something like that. And then when was the last time you went through all of your outgoings and really understood how much things were costing? Maybe you do it regularly, maybe you don't. But the last time you sat down with your spouse and did it, well, that's rare, too rare. And if you're listening to this and you're married or you're about to get into marriage, please hear this. These are the areas where people fight during separation and divorce. Separation and divorce is a big financial struggle and it's a big administrative struggle. Is it any wonder that people resort to shutdown or resort to anger, where they just don't know what the future holds? Now, it may be that over the Easter weekend, which is when I'm recording this, you were sitting in the pub with one of your friends, maybe you were watching the football, and they were, oh, I'm really worried about my relationship. I'm really worried that I think we're heading for divorce. And what did you say to your friend in that moment? Did you say, oh, mate, it'll be all right? Did you say, oh, have you tried counselling? Did you say, tell me more, what's been going on? That's quite normal to be struggling. What did you say? It may be that you didn't think, I wonder how their mental health is going to be affected by this. I wonder how their work is going to be affected. I say quite a lot, but men are often the breadwinners. That means that during separation and divorce, if they can't work, the money is going to stop coming in. That is not always the case, but it is the case some of the time. So why do men say I'm fine? Well, they do it because they were really encouraged and they were encouraged to do that. They were told what you need to do if you're going through a difficult time is be okay, be stoic, suck it up, get on with it. Sometimes it was to try and avoid it happening. Sometimes it was have a conversation. I don't know what it was for you. But I suppose what I want to highlight here is that divorce and separation is damaging to our health and well-being. And it's particularly damaging for men. And it causes unnecessary conflict. And I don't think the conflict is always driven by the current narrative, which is that people are narcissists and they're controlling. I think that the conflict is being driven by people's inability to have a difficult conversation. So here's some steps for difficult conversations. The first thing is, how does it feel in your body? How are you feeling? If you're feeling tense and tired and upset, man, you're just going to have a good conversation at that moment. It may be that you can't stop the conversation happening, but what you can do is understand that now is not the time to make any major decisions. The second thing that you can do is you can look at, are you interpreting this? And that's what I'm seeing a lot of. I follow a lot of groups, I follow a lot of posts, and I see people's difficult behavior being interpreted as aggressive and as conflictual. And I think the impact is conflictual. But I think looking at underneath about why that might be happening is really, really important. We live in a different society now. We live in a society where women have more rights and more earning power, more income and more say. We live in a society where they've changed the marriage laws so that we can get divorced without there having been infidelity or irreconcilable reasons. That's what it used to be. Now we can simply get divorced. That is really important. The statistics seem to show that the courts are more and more being requested to settle financial matters now, as if the no-fault divorce has kind of led to an increase in people seeking financial remedy through the courts. Also, to be honest, I see a lot of people using ChatGPT, and although lawyers and solicitors are very good at giving advice, they can't necessarily say what a judge would decide. And of course, we know the criminal courts as well as the family courts are all completely overwhelmed at the moment. So let's go back to the original title of this podcast. How can we tell whether a man is struggling? How can we tell when we're asking them how they are and they're saying, yeah, I'm fine? Well, I think that we can tell by looking at the level of conflict. People who are under stress are much more likely to fight. That's what we saw. We saw that during lockdown. We can see that in the cost of living crisis. People who are under stress are more likely to be prickly, they're more likely to be blamey, shamey, criticizing and shutting down. That's what they're more likely to do. It's just a fact. So if you are a man and you're struggling at the moment and you're finding that you're being prickly and now you're being accused of being a narcissist, you're accused of being controlling, accused of being coercive, these are serious accusations. And, what I'm going to say is there is a possibility that your behavior might be that. There is also a strong possibility that your intention isn't to be controlling or toxic or coercive. Muddling that through does mean having some difficult conversations with yourself. It means looking at, am I listening to myself? Am I giving the other person permission to disagree? Do I have permission to disagree? Disagreement is the secret of a good conversation. It really is. A difficult conversation is one where there is always disagreement. Being able to understand what that disagreement is can really lead things forwards. Are you able to disagree? And what is important? Often people will say, well, it's important that I get a fair deal, or it's important that I get the house. But I would ask a more deeper question, what is important? Well, if you've got kids, I tell you it's important. What's important is being able to have conversations with your child's other parent through the course of your child's life, because lots of things are going to happen. And I think people forget that. It doesn't matter what age your children are, whether they are 2 or 6 or 16 or 26. The conversations that you have with their other parent are going to influence that child's relationship with you as well as with the other parent. So here's what I'm saying. Men locked into conflict with the mother or the other parent of their child, locked into conflict. And when I'm in my coaching space with the men that I work with and the women I work with, they will agree that the fight that they're having seems to be about the future, but in some ways it's taking away the relationship future. So my top tip really for you today, if you're listening to this, is if you know somebody who's going through separation and divorce right now, whether it's a man or a woman, perhaps you've been through separation and divorce yourself. If you have, you'll know that it's very hard, it's very lonely, it's very tricky. It's different for every single person. If you are going through it yourself, the chances are you're struggling to work out what the future holds. So here's some things that you can do. First of all, notice how you're feeling in your body. Notice whether or not you're empathizing accurately with yourself or the other person. Notice whether you're expressing your feelings without being blamey or shamey. Notice whether your deregulation, your emotional deregulation, is so intense at the moment that actually you're not capable of seeing things either from your own or the other person's point of view. Notice if you've got a part of you inside that just is saying, oh, I'm just going to walk away. I'm going to walk away with nothing rather than remain in this conflict. Because that's your nervous system telling you that it's time. It's time to find a different way through. Men are struggling with separation and divorce. That is a fact. If you've got men in your life who are going through it, the chances are they're struggling. Mental health, supporting men's mental health is so important. It's very tempting to view women as victims of men, but the reality is a little bit more nuanced. People who are under stress and distressed are problems for the people around them. They cause problems. Their behavior is problematic. During separation and divorce, if you know anybody who's going through it, I'm going to tell you now, it's not an easy, straightforward thing. We need to have a lot of compassion. And just as we would show compassion to somebody who was going through a bereavement or somebody who was going through moving house, I want us to start showing compassion to men and women who are going through separation and divorce. I want us to see it as one of life's real challenges, really difficult situations. And I'm really calling on everybody who hears this to think about reaching out to someone they know who's maybe going through this at the moment and just checking in with them. And if they say they're fine, then ask follow-up questions. Because life is better after divorce than it is from going through the divorce. That for sure is the case. But when you're going through it, it can be really, really hard. And I'm seeing too many men who simply don't recover. They don't get to the other side. And that's partly because the process has just battered them. Men feel emotions just as much as women do. Sometimes men need a bit more help regulating their emotions, and that's because men are not taught that as much as women are. That's one of the legacies of our society. It is changing, which is a brilliant, brilliant thing. But today, I just want you to think about the men who are perhaps overperforming because they're suppressing or they're repressing their needs and their true emotions. So thank you so much for listening today. If you have found this podcast useful, please do like, please do subscribe, and please do share. It does matter that we reach out and we connect with people who are going through separation and divorce. It's an incredibly difficult time. It's a time when there's loads of new possibilities, but it's also a time when people are going through real grief at the loss of what once was. And although everybody is concerned about the children, I still believe, and I believe this through the evidence of what I've seen, if we can support the dads and the mothers, the children will be okay. Because the biggest threat to children during separation and divorce is their parent struggling. It's as simple as that. And we need to support both. And if you know a man and he is getting, perhaps he's getting irate, perhaps he is being a bit controlling, perhaps he is really, really struggling, just ask yourself, is this like when your car goes into a skid around a corner and you hold the wheel more tightly? Or is this what this person has always been like? Because very, very often you're looking at people who are behaving because that's just how they've learnt to behave. It isn't who they truly are, and it isn't who they truly wish to be. So take care, and I look forward to seeing you on the next edition of Dare to Speak, difficult conversations that can change everything. Take care.